Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I I've decided. I had long enough to decide, so I'm just gonna decide. I'm gonna keep talking. Why not? You saw your dad kill himself? Well, I killed my best friends.
What happened?
I wanted to go out with Bree, so I asked her to this graduation party, and Tyler, he wanted to be my wingman, so he came along for the car ride instead of meeting me there.
Wingman?
Yeah, a friend who helps you get a date.
Oh, I see.
We went to pick her up in my car and we were just messing around, joking and stuff. Then out of nowhere this deer just darts in the road. I wasn't looking. It's my fault. I just swerved and flipped the car off the side and the embankment, it was steep. Where we crashed, nobody could see us from the road.
You were there for a long time?
I didn't say anything to that, instead just looking off to my right. That was when I saw it. A bright splotch of red in the white snow. Oh, here we go again. Felix, do you see that? Do you hear that, Felix? Do you hear that strange noise? It's not just me, right? I pointed it out to him and he furrowed his brow in thought.
From the deer, perhaps?
There's no way. This is too far away. I walked toward the mark, heart hammering in my chest. Please don't be anything. Please, please. Oh yeah, this blood could just be, something random. The snow had splotches all across it. I turned on my phone's flashlight to get a better view in the twilight. Prints! Like there were by the deer. Felix stepped next to me, taking a protective stance as he surveyed the marks in front of us and glanced up at the sky.
The bear? Are those marks fresh?
I looked more closely at them. Some were half filled with fallen snow and the blood had frozen and crystallized. I could have pulled an entire frozen hunk out of the ground if I had wanted to. I think they're from last night, which means this blood is too.
At least that means we're safe for now. Wait, is that another one?
I looked over to where he was pointing. He was right. There was another bloody mark there, and the prints were prowling right toward it. This must be where Grayson's dad was attacked. At least I hope it was.
I'm not so sure, Nick. There's also a third one. And the prints, aren't they moving toward the cabins, not off into the woods?
Now that we'd reached the second mark, I could also see the third one, along with the roof of another cabin over a snowdrift. He's right. Whatever caused these prints is walking toward that cabin and away from the woods. Could it have been a person, maybe? I don't know. Felix kneeled down next to the closest mark. He picked something up and showed it to me. A shattered piece of bone covered in bite marks. Oh no.
The more I look at this, the more I think. Those prints. Nick, does it look like a bear to you?
I wouldn't exactly call myself a bear expert. He sighed and turned back toward the cabin.
Well, never mind. I suspect we may find more of an answer there.
He gestured toward the building and I felt a shiver run down my spine. The prints and the bloody marks. It's all going that way. What? We could just go back, Why are we gonna put ourselves in harm's way? I mean, we're trying to get out of here, right? We're not trying to investigate. We're trying to stay alive.
Oh no, I don't think there's any going back now.
Well, maybe then you can go on and tell me about this later.
Besides, I have to check on my guests. If something has happened, well, I have to be the one to report it, wouldn't I?
He didn't wait for my answer. Just stood up and walked around the snowdrift that was blocking the cabin from view. Oh my gosh, I can't just leave him. Ugh. Or maybe you can, Nick. Nobody would blame you. I walked up to the cabin to look around. There was an SUV covered in a mound of snow parked in front of the building, and when I got there, Felix was surveying the door from about 5 feet back. Oh. Well, you know, if I have the option, I'm not gonna go to the cabin door right away. Plus, Felix is already there. So, look at the SUV. This car must have been parked here since before the storm. The SUV had a vanity plate that read Hunt RMA Huntrama, surrounded by a frame with little deer printed all over it, ironically. What's that supposed to mean? Hunter Mom? Kinda tacky. Okay, it's SUV, so let's look at the snow. Be some good detectives here. The clean prints we had followed here led up to the cabin, but coming out... Oh no. The prints were thick with blood. They were so deeply saturated that there were entire frozen pools in their wake, huge droplets scattered in the snow between each gory step. Okay. Well, we have no choice. I guess we have to go to the cabin door. The door was hanging open, hinges creaking softly at every gust of wind. Felix was eyeing it, looking concerned. You don't have to. He pushed on the door hard enough to send it flying open. The already battered top hinge gave way and the door moaned as it thudded to a lopsided halt against the wall. Oh! I gagged as a deeply unpleasant metallic tang filled my nose and mouth. I know this smell. It had to have been at least 6 hours since the crash, and the sun was starting to rise. Tyler and Bree lay on either side of me, and each minute of growing daylight was a new torture. Help! I wasn't shouting anymore, just whispering the words every time I thought I heard someone drive by above me on the road. I tried to climb up the embankment a few hours ago, but I couldn't stand on my leg and could feel the bone grinding whenever I tried. It was hugely swollen now and pulsed unpleasantly every time I took a breath, constricted by my jeans. If I'm here much longer, I think there's a utility knife in my glove box. If I can get to that, I would have to climb over Bree to get it. She was lying motionless against the overturned car, her body half crushed under the hood. They had both gone rigid, and I could smell something more foul starting to waft from their bodies. Oh my god! What? Am I hearing things? I turned my head toward the road and saw a man standing there with a bike. Hang in there! I'll get help! Sure. Help. I'll just stay down here for what, another hour? For the rest of my life? My hands were brown and crusty with dried gore. I stared down at them and said nothing. Oh, that was a pretty long one. Felix pulled out a handkerchief and pressed it up against his nose and mouth so as not to breathe in the rancid air. Hey man, you got another napkin for me? Do you have another one of those?
Yes, I do, here.
He produced a second cloth from his pocket and handed it to me. It smelled old and dusty, as if it had been kept in the back of a wooden drawer and never used. Still, it was better than breathing in the unfiltered air. Felix stepped inside and I followed close behind him. Is that a body? It was hard to tell. It had been so mangled. Hunks of flesh were scattered across the floor. Oh my gosh. I'm glad Grayson isn't here to see this, but she's alone, and now there's more than one body.
I don't know who this is. Nobody was renting this cabin out.
Alarmed, he swiftly walked over to take a closer look. But wait, didn't he say earlier he had to check on his guests?
Let's look at the cabin.
Oh, there's some pretty curtains you got here. The whole cabin was in ruins. Blood arced up on the walls and there were claw marks gouged into everything. I could see an array of pock marks next to the front door. Something glimmered inside one of them. I picked at it. Metal? It's pretty mashed up, but not bloody. I'm glad my mom got stuck down the mountain. The only way this could get worse is if she was here. What kind of bear just comes into a cabin and rips everything up like this?
While I appreciate your interest in the decor, we have more pressing things to examine.
He gestured toward the corpse. Yeah, Felix, I can't imagine why I wouldn't want to look at that right away. Okay, I guess I have no choice. Let's, examine the body. I followed Felix over to the corpse. Let's see. Let's look at the body.
A woman?
How can you even tell? It's so badly... Then I saw it. A lump of fat sagging across the torn open chest. The remnants of what must have been a breast. I took a step back, taking in a deep, shuddering breath. I dropped the handkerchief he had handed me in my panic. It fluttered to the floor and landed in a congealing pool of blood. Felix watched it fall, then lazily lifted his eyes to my face. Oh, I just asked for that, too.
That was monogrammed. A gift from my father, and now it's soiled. You should be more careful with my things.
Well, I'm sorry, Felix. The dead body terrified me. He turned back to look more closely at the body. Sorry, my bad. Why'd you give me your dusty, musty father's monogram handkerchief anyway? I choked as the scent of stale excrement overpowered me. Her intestines hadn't just been ripped out. Whatever had done it had chewed them up, leaving bits of their contents scattered around the corpse. It took everything I had not to vomit. The stench was so thick, this close to the body, it was as if it was coating my tongue. I swear I could taste it. Just like with Tyler, his body smelled like that too. Without even looking back at me, Felix pulled out a tin and offered it up. What? Are those mints?
Put one in your mouth. It should help mask the smell enough for you to stop gagging. Wouldn't do to have you vomiting all over the scene. Or on my shoes, for that matter.
God forbid your shoes are ruined, Felix. I guess it wouldn't hurt. I took a mint out of the offered tin and put it in my mouth. We looked at the body. Let's look at the head. The face had been reduced to ribbons of deep red gouges. The only way I could tell where the eyes used to be was the white ridge of an exposed brow bone above the eye socket. This is so specific and very detailed. The entire lower half of the jaw had been ripped off from the rest of the face. That fleshy lump over there might be the rest of the jaw. Not like it matters. Okay, all that's left is the hands. The hands were the most intact thing about the body. A shotgun lay next to the corpse, one of the rigid fingers wrapped in the trigger. Her nails are painted and they look perfect. No chips. That's kind of weird. Shouldn't have there been more of a struggle? I would have thought that would mess up the polish. That's very observant.
Bright yellow nail polish. Well, whoever this was certainly didn't have any taste.
What kind of comment is that? That's needlessly judgmental. Yeah. I don't know. It probably looked pretty good when there was a whole unbutchered person to go with the hands.
When there was what? A plaid shirt to go with it?
Yeah. Because that's the most important thing to look at here. Why are they smiling? He looked up at me sharply and smiled?
I'm doing it again, aren't I? Whoever this was, they were squatting, and now they are also dead in my very ruined cabin. I know I should be more compassionate, but this place is my life.
How could they just ruin it? How can they go and get themselves killed? Look, all I'm saying is there's a gun right there. A person has been ripped apart, and you're going on about nail polish and plaid shirts and monogrammed handkerchiefs. Felix, you looking real suspicious right now.
Well, I don't think the cause of death was a gunshot wound, do you?
Very passive-aggressive, huh? He gave a wide, sweeping gesture that encompassed the bloody ruin of the corpse. Yeah, okay, I get it. You love your cabins, and one of them is all messed up. It doesn't change the fact that a gun could be helpful. I reached down to pick up the weapon, and the mostly severed arm came with it, the final tendons detaching with a snap. A sucking, squelching noise accompanied its rise. The finger was still wrapped around the trigger. This is like Bree. No, I have to keep it together. There are other people counting on me now. Felix, can you pull that off? I stared up at the ceiling, trying not to think about the swinging arm on the trigger. There was a snap and I looked down. Felix had peeled the finger back. It was so rigid it had cracked when he pulled it off. He threw the arm back on the floor in distaste.
You're welcome. Is the weapon of any use?
Oh, I don't know. It's a gun. Maybe it can protect us from a crazed murderer or bear or whatever else is going on.
So, is it loaded?
Yeah, good point. That's a good point. You're onto something. I checked. It was double-barreled, and there was a single shell loaded in the chamber. Single shell. I wonder if this is foreshadowing. I might have to use it later on. One was fired?
Feel any safer?
Is he mocking me? Yeah, a little. I mean, I can at least try to kill whatever did this before it finishes me off.
I wouldn't worry about that. You have me.
Again with that smile. What is that supposed to mean? Is he planning on judging the bear to death? Well, what do you know, Felix? Alright, well, I'll just keep this as a backup plan. I looked back down at the corpse and could see there was something in the front pocket of the shirt. The fabric had glued itself to the exposed muscles above the ribcage. Averting my gaze, I reached into the pocket. It was sticky with cold blood, but I did find a hard metal cylinder and pulled it out. A second shell. Suddenly, I heard a voice call out from somewhere outside of the cabin, along with the crunching of footsteps. Well, nice of you to join us. Nick? You here, Nick? Wait, this car is... That's blood. I turned toward the door, holding the shotgun loosely in one hand, my bloody fingers clutching the extra shell in the other. Grayson stood in the doorway, a shadowy outline in the growing dusk. Oh no, man. Three's a crowd. What are you doing here? How was your nap? Grayson, you're here. There's been another death. It was that bear. She didn't say anything, just stared. Her eyes went from me to Felix, who had stood up and straightened out his vest, then down to the mangled, faceless corpse. The car. No, she shouldn't be nowhere near here. She's in the city. She ain't never come back up since. Oh, don't... Give me a break. Wait a minute. Is this our mother? She walked over, each slow step taking an eternity. She froze when she saw the painted nails and started shaking uncontrollably. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Are you for real? This is my mama! She said it with detached disbelief, then looked at the shotgun in my hand. That's her gun. I know it. That's hers. It's a bad day for you, Grayson. Maybe you ought to take another nap. Maybe it's not, Grayson. You say your mom was in the city, right? Maybe it's not. Does it got a little rose on the stock? Yeah, it does. She looked like she was about to burst into tears, but then a look of deep rage bubbled up on her face. And what was you doing, Felix? I saw you around last night Why did you do nothing? What? Felix eyed her and sniffed distastefully.
I should ask you the same thing. I saw nothing on my walk last night, and last I checked they were your parents. What were you even doing outside?
Grayson, you were out last night too? Yeah, I was. I went walking. Needed to get out of the house, so I left to cool off. Cool off from what? She looked incredibly sad and stared straight at me so as not to see the body on the floor. I got in a real yelling match with my daddy. I just wanted to see my mama, you know? In the city. And he was telling me he ain't never gonna let me go because he needed me here. And I told him he should just drop dead and then I could go where I wanted, and I left. Nick, the last thing I ever told him was that he should die. He tried to stop me too. He was telling me I was grounded and couldn't leave. I went in my room and left out of the window before he noticed. What did you do when you were out? Just walking around, you know? I was real pissed, so kind of kicked at some snow and rocks and stuff like that in my booty shorts. Ran into Felix and he was being real rotten like he is right now. asking about how my mom is when he knows she left. She started shaking uncontrollably again when she mentioned her mom. She must be trying not to think about what's on the floor behind us. And I sat down to think on one of the cabin porches and I must have fallen asleep. I get the sleepwalking thing real bad sometimes. Next morning I woke up at home.
And you didn't think to question your father's absence?
He goes to town all the time. I figure he must have gone before that storm last night.
While his daughter was missing?
Maybe he didn't know. I snuck out real good. He could have just left thinking he let me cool down. I didn't need a car to be heading anywhere. It wouldn't have been no big deal to leave.
A likely story.
What are you trying to say, Felix? Nick, you believe me, right?
Ah.
Well, you know what? I mean, Felix is kind of like freaky and he's just been strange. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit weird that, you know, Grayson just happened to be out when her daddy goes missing and the mama goes missing, but she happened to be up here. But I think she's telling the truth. So I'm gonna go ahead. Grayson, I believe you. But you know what? Let me say first before I say that. Grayson, I believe you're telling the truth. Yes, I believe you. Something weird is going on here, but I think she's told me everything she knows. Felix, Grayson just told us what she did that night. What did you do?
Me? I already told you what I did.
I think you owe us a little more detail than I walked around and looked at stuff.
That was insolent. Grayson must be rubbing off on you.
So what did you do last night, buddy? You still not answering the question. You're getting all defensive. Yeah, what you gonna been up to, Felix? I saw you slinking around.
Very well. I went to look out around the property, as I do quite often.
He stood rigidly, his voice clipped and sour, as if this entire thing were a massive waste of his time.
I first went to visit Mr. Nash to see if there was anything that needed to be attended to.
Okay, last night.
I thought better of it when I heard his hysterical daughter railing on about wanting to murder him because she couldn't go on a trip.
He's got some incredible hearing, or these walls are just paper thin. That's not what...
Do you want to know what I was up to or not?
Grayson mumbled something under her breath, but didn't continue to argue.
I then decided to check on the patrons staying here, but before I visited any of them, I ran into Grayson again, this time standing in front of a vacant cabin, pouting. Actually, it was this cabin, come to think of it.
What? Grayson was at this cabin last night? Oh, you're right. I guess it was this one, but I must have left before anything happened. There wasn't no car here.
Well, I can't speak to anything that happened after I left, but Ms. Nash is correct. There was no car here when I came across her. I continued my rounds, or rather I intended to, but ended up way late at my first visit. A gentleman staying down the road by the name of Mr. Booker invited me in to talk, which was when the snowstorm hit. He was complaining about bears getting into his garbage. I got stuck there for the duration of the storm. Once it cleared up, instead of heading home right away, I decided to make one more stop. There was a new guest here, and I wished to welcome them. That would be you, Nick.
Yeah, you did come to see me.
Oh, and one more thing. I ran into Mr. Nash while he was out looking for his daughter.
Huh. He ran into Mr. Nash. Why didn't he say anything earlier? Let's put our thinking caps on, fellas. You ran into my daddy? And it was you! You killed him!
Oh, please. If I had, why would I be telling you about this now? No, he was looking for you, and I told him where to find you. Here, at this cabin. He also mentioned something about his wife. I believe he made a call to her about your disappearance before the lines went down.
What? You didn't go with him?
Why would I? I want no part in family drama, particularly if it isn't my own. Don't you find it suspicious? Both of them go to where Ms. Nash was that night and turn up dead in the morning. I know I do.
That's only 'cause you're telling lies. Your word ain't worth nothing. That's all we got going on right now.
We have to take you at your word as well. Why should I believe that you left here before this massacre happened?
He twisted his lips into a grimace and gestured toward the gore-strewn floor.
Perhaps you did leave Perhaps you did leave before your mother came back. At least at first. Somebody had to hang that body up.
But I know for certain... Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, we did tell him that the body was hanged.
But I know for certain you must have returned. There's a dead woman in here to prove it.
How do you know about my daddy hanging? See, Nick, he must have killed him. But when... Yeah, didn't we say something? I told him. He was helping me while you were... Dang it, Nick! Why ain't gonna go gallivanting off with this snake? He's always been real mean to me. I don't know why I didn't think of it right when I saw my daddy. He killed him. I know it. I just know it. What about the other guests, Mr. Booker, you said? Felix, is there anyone else up here? Felix shrugged and seemed to dismiss the idea.
Nobody is as suspicious as Miss Nash.
Then wait, yeah, what about Mr. Booker? I mean, what about the other guests?
Miss Lee is here with her 3-year-old son, so I find it hard to believe she decided to go on a late-night murder spree. Mr. Booker is younger and staying here alone, but, he's, not in the best of shape, to put it mildly. Honestly, I thought he was the dead man when you first told me you found a corpse.
Fine. I'm sorry. Felix is just an interesting character.
Finally, there are Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd, a retired couple who drive in from town to go on walks. They became trapped up here because of the storm. I find it a bit ludicrous to suggest some retirees slaughtered a woman with a shotgun and hung a corpse from a tree, don't you?
You thought one of them could have done it earlier tonight.
Out of an abundance of caution, Nick. That was also before we found Mrs. Nash butchered in the cabin her daughter was sitting in front of earlier in the night.
Someone is definitely responsible for this, and there are so many things that don't add up. Well, I think I'm actually going to pause it here. Let's continue this in the next episode.